with James Boyes. James is a political analyst and professor of international political studies, joining this hour from London. It's always good to have you on the show.
Thank you, George. Good morning.
Good to be with you. So, look, we saw the leaders of these two countries present a front that there is a close, unwavering bond, an alliance between the United States and Japan. But again, the issues of trade and security, there was some daylight that seemed to be apparent.
Yeah, let's be honest about it. The United States and Japan have had a very close relationship and alliance for many decades now. And as we discussed some days ago, the issues of trade and national security were always going to dominate this trip. When you look at issues to do with North Korea, for example, and the suggestion that Donald Trump is in some disagreement with perhaps John Bolton and the United States position with regard to issues to do with missile testing, there's clearly some daylight there. And I think it was notable that the president was asked about that as he left the room and seemed to indicate that there was actually no disagreement, which of course seems to be a complete contradiction. But you have to say, I think, the White House will be very pleased with the way this trip is going. The optics look very good. And there's some interesting developments coming out of this trip, the sale of 105 F-35 stealth aircraft and new access to the Japanese markets for US beef. So far, I think the White House will be very pleased with how this trip has gone.
Let's talk about that again. So from the Japanese perspective, we did see the Japanese Prime Minister roll out the red carpet here. Would you say that this really worked well for Japan?
Well, so far you have to say that, again, from both sides, from the Japanese and the American point of view, this looks like a very well-organized, orchestrated trip. I think that what you've seen is a clear recognition by the Japanese leadership that personal flattery works very well with this president. That shouldn't be any great surprise. The way in which Donald Trump has conducted himself in many ways is not dissimilar from how it is that many American presidents have acted in the past. When they find themselves perhaps under siege or under attack at home, they travel overseas and are welcomed as statesmen. And I think we see that with this president here. From a Japanese point of view, I think they're going to be very happy to have had access to the American latest stealth technology. The announcement that the Americans and the Japanese are going to be going into a manned space operation will be a remarkable step forward, I think, bringing both American and Japanese technology into the final frontier. So it's an interesting development coming out of this trip, I think, which many people didn't foresee.
All right, and two other issues I'd like to bring to the fore. So the two leaders also spoke about the trade war that's happening between the United States and Japan, saying that is affecting Japan. They also spoke, Mr. Trump pointed out that, Japan has a relationship with Iran, and perhaps Japan could play a role in helping to ease the tensions between the U.S. and Iran.
Yes, and it's interesting, both points, isn't it? It was only, it seems like yesterday, although I'm sure it was more than that, that, of course, the United States had very grave concerns about the Japanese penetration of the American market. Now, of course, those concerns have been switched to China. The extent to which the United States really wants to get a good trade balance with both nations, that's going to be very, very difficult to achieve, I think. And Donald Trump, I think, is finding that it's a lot easier to walk away from agreed upon trade deals, as that was agreed by Barack Obama, for example, than it is to strike new deals. And we've heard that there are going to be delays with regard to that, with regard to the Japanese domestic political calendar. If indeed Japan can come around and play a role with regard to helping negotiate a deal with the Iranians, and it's notable that, that Donald Trump, of course, specifically said they weren't seeking regime change in Tehran, then that, I think, would be a very positive step forward in that part of the world.
James Boyes, we always appreciate your time and perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, George.